Revealed. 4 incredible coffees you must sip and 4 worst you should never touch after 60. Linda stood in the soft glow of the morning sun filtering through her coffee shop's windows, her heart racing as she reviewed the latest exotic coffee blends she'd been considering for her clientele. Today was a special day. Her 60th birthday was just around the corner. Yet, that thrill was shadowed by an unsettling reality. Troubling health concerns began to overshadow the warm aroma of freshly brewed coffee, the essence of her life's work. As she prepared her beloved lattes, whispers of potential health warnings about coffee after 60 crept into her mind. The realization hit her like a jolt of shot espresso. Could her passion also pose a threat? In the cozy seating corner, her loyal customers were gathered, munching on muffins and trading stories. Among them was Ms. Harper, the retired teacher. Every sip from her steaming cup resonated with fond memories of students and lessons learned over the decades. Nearby, the struggling artist, Jamie, vigorously painted while discussing the virtues of a particular blend, swearing it boosted his creativity. The single mother, Amy, sought comfort in the shop's warm embrace, her laughter ringing out amidst soft clinks of tableware. But today, the air was heavy with a question that lingered. Was her love for coffee dwindling like steam rising in the cold air? Linda, Amy called out, loud enough to gather attention. Have you heard about those studies on coffee and health? They say some you must sip and others, while her voice trailed off, as though the unspoken could linger in the air between them. The conversation ignited a lively debate, tension sparking between cups. Exotic blends could enhance vitality, but maybe stick to lighter brews, suggested Jamie, while Ms. Harper nodded cautiously, contemplating each word's weight. Linda felt the pressure mount, like a brewing pot about to overflow. The cheerful banter crystallized into unease as their hands wrapped tightly around cups that had always brought warmth and wisdom. Each sip was a reminder of time's swift passage. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Linda's breath grew uneven as she felt the opinions of her customers piercing through her thoughts. Her late husband's recipe book sat hidden beneath the counter, its presence a haunting echo of love and tradition. She felt it, a tugging force, calling her to seek old comfort in ink faded by time. Yet, would those cherished recipes now betray her? The joy had become a source of anguish. How could she continue to cherish recipes that might no longer align with her health? Her thoughts swirled as she placed lattes in front of her patrons, each cup a monument to her dedication. Sweat formed on her brow, and she realized, with a sinking heart, her coffee shop was more than just a workplace. It was a sanctuary where laughter, hope, and camaraderie brewed together. But as whispers of the new cafe across the street spread around, the weight of losing everything she held dear began to crush her resolve. Linda could feel the brewing storm inside, her mind a chaotic blend of nostalgia and fear. The rich aroma of coffee mingled with her doubts, thick as smoke. Was this the end of her legacy? Each customer's laughter rang hollow against the shadow of the new competition, drawing her deeper into herself, into a place where the challenge of aging loomed larger than life. What would become of her sanctuary? How much longer could she stand in this frenzy without losing everything? Linda's thoughts spiraled as she swung back to the counter, hands trembling slightly as she prepared the next batch of coffee. Her heart pounded not from the hustle of the morning rush, but from a growing sense of urgency. A voice stirred deep within her, demanding she reconsider everything she had accepted as truth. The shop, her passion, might be leading her down a path of regret, away from what mattered most. She spotted Ms. Harper amidst the gathering, her keen eyes peering over the rim of her cup as she listened intently. The teacher had a knack for picking up on the subtle shifts in Linda's demeanor. "You look deep in thought, dear," Ms. Harper remarked, concern lacing her voice. "Everything all right?" Linda felt the weight of that question. The answer was complex, and she wasn't sure she could verbalize it yet, even to herself. Instead, She nodded, forcing a smile. But the facade felt increasingly heavy to maintain. Turning away from the table, Linda took a breath, trying to center herself. She faced the wall-heavy framed photographs of her journey in the world of coffee. Each picture told a story of learning, growth, and the love that fueled her dreams. But now those memories felt like shackles binding her to an uncertain future. Nostalgia draped over her more significantly than ever, yet doubt continued to thrum in her chest. What if keeping the cafe intact meant clinging to habits that could sabotage her health? She had built an empire on the notion that her coffee brought people together, but she wasn't even sure she could continue to serve it. As the morning rush began to dwindle, Linda resolved to reach into her husband's recipe book. She hadn't touched it much since he passed, afraid of the flood of memories it would unleash. But she needed to confront it. Perhaps there was an answer there, a new blend that could honor their legacy while embracing her health. She excused herself briefly, stealing away to the back where the weathered book lay. Fingers trembling, she opened it, the scent of aged paper wafting into the air. Each recipe was a memory, a conversation, a laughter shared over those lattes. She flipped through pages, but instead of the comfort she sought, a gnawing doubt filled her. Were these recipes relics of a past she needed to outgrow? Her heart sank as pages turned, but one caught her eye: a coffee blend infused with spices traditionally known for their health benefits. A spark flickered in her chest. What if she could revitalize her offerings? Create a new menu that both honored her husband's legacy and catered to a healthier lifestyle? The thought ignited a sense of purpose within her. It could set her apart from the competition. Linda could introduce a line of drinks that inspired vitality, capturing her customers' attention with health-conscious alternatives without sacrificing the warmth of their customary favorites. This could be a new chapter in her coffee journey, one that not only contained her emotional ties to the past, but also boldly reached toward the future. Fueled with newfound determination, she returned to the main area, where chatter resumed among her loyal patrons. Eyes glimmering, she spoke with conviction. What if I told you there are new blends on the horizon? Blends not just catered for taste, but for vitality? A hush fell over the chatter, curiosity shimmering across faces. But Linda's heart raced. This was the moment to confront the demons of doubt. The change wasn't just about coffee. It was about her journey, her health, and the legacy she chose to nurture. The energy in the shop shifted, and she leaned in closer to her patrons, eager to share the direction she intended to take. The real question, however, loomed. Would they embrace this shift, or would it lead to isolation from the very community that defined her coffee shop? As she looked into their eyes, she sensed both excitement and fear, realizing she stood at a precipice of change, a place where she would finally have to embrace her own evolution. Yet somewhere in the back of her mind, a nagging concern persisted. What if the indulgent coffee culture she had created was too strong to be diluted? Could she initiate this transformation, or was she setting herself up for failure amidst the very people who had supported her all these years? The brewing storm in her heart wasn't dissipating. If anything, the winds of change were picking up speed. The moment had come to dive deeper into her resolve. But would it anchor her or set her adrift? Linda's excitement was palpable, yet beneath it lay an undertow of trepidation. As her gaze swept across the familiar faces of her patrons, doubt skittered among the optimism. Would they welcome the risk of change, or would she face resistance from those who adored what she had built? The nuanced expression on Ms. Harper's face caught her attention again. Change is daunting, isn't it? The teacher observed, her eyes assessing. But perhaps it's the very thing you need. Sometimes stepping back can propel you forward. Linda nodded, reluctantly absorbing Ms. Harper's wisdom. A part of her silently wished she could simply push forward without grappling with the past. But how could she honor her husband's memory while forging an uncertain path? Emboldened, she offered samples of the health-infused blend. I want you to taste this, just one sip, she urged, hands unsteady as she poured steaming cups into small, ceramic mugs. The spices swirled like elusive dreams, drifting in impossible directions. As she made her rounds, her heart quickened. The first hesitant sips elicited murmurs, and a few encouraging smiles lifted her resolve. But she couldn't shake the nagging voice echoing in the back of her mind. Would they view her new offerings as a betrayal of tradition? Returning to the counter, she wiped her brow, feeling the weight of countless expectations pressing down. Releasing a slow breath, she steadied herself. She was no longer just serving coffee. She was reshaping identities, both hers and those belonging to her customers. It was exhilarating yet terrifying. "Linda," said a familiar voice, and her thoughts were interrupted by Carl, a regular who had become a fixture in her cafe. "What has changed?" "This isn't the coffee I know." His tone was cautious, scrutinizing. It was a genuine question, and it thrust Linda into the realm of vulnerability she had tried to avoid. "I want to create something new," she replied, sensing the gravity of her words. "Something healthier. A blend full of vitality." "But it's still coffee, Carl." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Just make sure we still feel connected to what you built. Don't lose the heart of this place." His words cut through her resolve, digging deeper into the crevices of her self-doubt. What if this change alienated the very people she wanted to uplift? Glory in the face of adversity was admirable, but what if she lost everything that mattered along the way? Determined to cement her resolve, she returned to the back desk where the weathered recipe book lay. Thumbing through the pages, searching for affirmations, it struck her each heartfelt recipe within was about connection, moments of love, and the joy brought forth through coffee. They were not constraints. They were the very roots from which she would grow. She flipped to the page that featured the health-focused blend, and a new idea took form. Rather than discarding the past, she would weave it into the future. The essence of her husband's legacy could coexist alongside the evolution of her offerings, a tapestry of flavor and memories. Fueled by the revelation, Linda made her decision. She would hold an open house next Saturday, inviting her customers to come and taste not only the new blends, but to share their stories. "Let us bring the community into this together," she thought, ecstatic at the collaborative potential, but awareness flickered. Would they share their loyalty and feelings of nostalgia, or would her approach risk fracturing the foundation beneath the shop? As it loomed near, she prayed the energy of shared memories would ignite the excitement of change. With no turning back now, Linda set the date, feeling an intense jolt of adrenaline as the potential for connection sparked within her. The moment was nearing when she would unveil not just new brews, but the entire philosophy behind their inception. What would await her when she opened that door to transformation? Could she truly blend the past and the future without losing herself in the process? The clock was ticking, and uncertainty danced dangerously. On the edge of her heart, the venue of hope and fear converged sharply as she prepared to confront the ultimatum. Could she handle the weight of change? Linda spent the next few days in a whirlwind of activity, balancing the demands of her cafe while mentally sorting through the layers of her decision. The open house loomed ahead like an unsolved riddle, teasing her with the possibilities it represented. She felt a pollination of enthusiasm seeded deep within her, but the overbearing pressure of expectation made it hard to breathe freely. In the quiet early hours before the doors opened each morning, Linda found herself retreating into her thoughts. She practiced her welcome speech in the mirror, listening for the wavering of her voice. Fragments of courage would surface, only to be undercut by biting criticism from the recesses of her mind. What if their feedback was harsh? What if they turned their backs, leaving her in her cafe, flickering like a solitary candle in a gust? One morning, armed with determination, she pulled out the cherished recipe book again and began to jot down how each blend had transformed over the years. It was not merely about the ingredients, but also about the shared laughter, the warmth of conversations, and the sense of belonging that she had cultivated expertly. These reflections began to form a vision beyond mere flavors. They could embody stories, cherished moments wrapped around each sip'd. She focused on ensuring every detail was tied to this philosophy. It dawned on her that she needed to channel her husband's spirit into this new direction. His love for crafting experiences rather than just coffee had resonated with countless patrons over the years. To fill each cup with not only a health-infused blend, but the love behind it would be her homage to everything they built together. However, doubts crept back in. What if the community does not respond to the underlying emotion? A small voice taunted. She couldn't quiet it. She pushed back, anxious to secure her vision. Drawing from her personal resolve, she created a sign that read, Let us celebrate new flavors together. It felt emphatic, a call to share, rather than to change. Yet, amidst her preparations, the insecurities swirled in her mind like a storm without an eye. Each day presented moments when she'd overhear patrons reminiscing about old favorites, and the conversations wrapped around her heart like old friends. Her determination to blend the past with the present began to feel like walking a tightrope strung between nostalgia and innovation. One afternoon, while arranging flowers on a table, Linda caught Ms. Harper's insightful gaze penetrating her reflective space. "You're a vessel for transformation, Linda," the teacher stated, her voice gentle but firm. "You're not discarding the past. You're choosing to honor it in a new light." Such words held weight, yet controversy brewed beneath the surface. The realization struck her personal and professional growth hinged on this moment of vulnerability. Was she truly ready to confront herself, ready to risk the fragments of tradition that had brought her so much pride? The morning of the open house arrived, and the scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, beckoning familiar faces back to the cafe. As she glanced at the beautifully arranged space, vibrant colors spilled from the flowers, and a soft glow enveloped the room. This was an uncomfortable knot twisted in her stomach as she stood at the entrance, welcoming the first patrons. Would they embrace the alternative she offered? The moment unfolded with silence as they gathered around the counter, their expectations palpable. The time for revelation had arrived. As she took a deep breath and prepared to unveil her new blends, a sudden apprehension clashed within her. Would she find her comfort in this new reality, or would she falter under the weight of transformation that weighed heavily upon her shoulders? She felt ready to share her truth, would they? The true challenge lay within herself, and the looming tension of their reaction lingered in the air. This was not just about coffee. It was about connection, memories, and the delicate art of sharing her heart. Under the weight of the moment, Linda took a step forward, ready to face not only her patrons but the prospect of her own evolution. What awaited her on the other side of this unveiling? Would her offerings land softly or shatter under scrutiny? As the first few patrons stepped into the cafe, Linda's heart raced in rhythm with the ticking clock on the wall. A childhood friend, Laura, entered first, her expression betraying curiosity mixed with trepidation. Linda caught a flicker of surprise, but buried her anxiety beneath a warm smile. "Welcome, Laura. I've got some new blends for you to try today." The moment tasted electric, each interaction amplifying her determination. Yet, doubt crept back insidiously. She scanned the room, noting the patrons' expressions hovering between nostalgia and expectation. This was more than just coffee for them. It was the blend of tradition and memories that her husband had nurtured. As she began to pour the first cup of her innovative blend, a health-conscious espresso infusion, she felt every eye fixated on her, an audience cloaked in silence. "Is it still the same?" Laura asked, breaking the stillness as she took a sip. Linda's stomach clenched, the question settled heavily in the air. "It's a little different. I've infused it with, well, healthful ingredients. It's still robust, but with a twist." A subtle reminder of the love and care she had put into it lingered in her words. Laura nodded slowly, but didn't elaborate. The weight of their silence grew oppressive. The sun cast amber silhouettes on the wall, contrasting the uncertainty in Linda's gut. She felt exposed, torn between her desire to innovate and the traditions that formed the foundation of her cafe. Patrons huddled closer to the counter, sipping, tasting. The next blend, a fruity amalgamation, revealed its vibrant notes, yet the lingering half-smiles hinted at deeper apprehension. Was it working? On the surface, she masked her anxiety with encouragement, but reality nagged at her. "Do you think they'll really embrace the new blends?" she asked Ms. Harper, who had just taken a seat and was savoring her cup. Harper studied Linda, that familiar knowing look softening the uncertainty swirling around them. "You're bridging something vital, Linda. They'll come around, but you need to be patient. Remember, they have to trust you again." Trust, the essence of connection. Linda remembered the conversations and laughter that once filled her cafe, the rituals formed around her husband's legacy. Would her innovations feel like betrayal to those who walked through her doors? That thought stuck like a thorn. With determination, she approached the next group. A young couple sat in the corner, glancing over the menu as if it were a riddle. Linda could feel their hesitancy, so she decided to reach out more personally. "What is on your minds?" she asked, leaning in with genuine interest. They looked up, startled, then shared their concerns about the changes. "We loved your classic brews. This all seems different." Their sincerity was palpable, amplifying her internal conflict. This inquiry ignited something in Linda. "Change is hard, I understand. I'm building on what we love together. It's my heart in a new form." The realization struck her she was no longer just a caretaker of her husband's legacy. She needed to embrace her own contribution. As she expressed it, Linda felt a flicker of resolve stoke the flames within her. "The heart of our cafe beats with stories, just like our blends," she added. She noticed them nodding slowly, their faces softening. Maybe she could kindle connection, not just through flavors, but through meaningful dialogue. The tension shifted as she rallied, aware now that her journey was as much about their journey as well. Each interaction became a thread connecting her to the patrons, not just a cafe, but a tapestry of memories evolving into something new. Just as she settled into a rhythm with the crowd, a familiar face, one Linda hoped would embrace her new vision, stepped forward. It was Mr. Thompson, an opinionated regular whose judgments often stung. He didn't look pleased. "Linda," he started, his tone grave, "I need to speak to you about these changes. They feel disingenuous." Her heart sank, but this was a confrontation she didn't anticipate. Could she demonstrate the depth of her convictions? The ground beneath her teetered, both exciting and terrifying. The moment loomed like a storm gathering on the horizon. Linda could choose to confront this directly or shrink away. Would she rise to the challenge, standing tall in her vulnerability, or would she retreat into the safety of the familiar? The open house had transformed from a simple unveiling into a defining moment. Linda prepared to respond. Her answer would shape not only her day, but the entirety of her cafe's future. What would she say to the man whose opinion could sway others in the room? The scene was set for confrontation, and the stakes had never felt higher. Linda took a deep breath, her mind racing as she mentally steeled herself for the encounter. Mr. Thompson held a respected position in their community. His opinions often echoed like a thunderous drum. She felt the sweat prick at her brow, an urgency pushing against her ribs, but she refused to let fear dictate her response. "Mr. Thompson," she began, her voice steady despite the turmoil within, "I appreciate your honesty. It's exactly the kind of feedback I need as I navigate these changes." His brow raised, perhaps momentarily caught off guard by her composure. "It just feels, well, forced. You're not the same Linda who baked treats and brewed coffee, just like old times." "I'm still that Linda," she countered, her passion igniting like a spark against the darkness of doubt. "But I also have to grow. This cafe is still a part of me, and I hope to preserve what we loved while also introducing new flavors. Isn't that what life is about?" His reluctant nod indicated he was at least listening, and she seized the moment, punctuating her words with a determined gaze. "The world changes, Mr. Thompson. I'm challenging myself to reflect that progress. I want to invite our community on this journey with me, not just preserve nostalgia." She expected him to argue back, but instead, he appeared contemplative, a flicker of understanding dawning in his expression. "I just worry you'll lose the essence of what made us come here in the first place," he admitted, oddly vulnerable. Linda's heart softened. "The essence? It's in the connections we've built. Our stories shared over coffee. Those stories don't have to remain static." Realization washed over her, the flickering light of a revelation. Her role extended beyond just coffee. She was a curator of experiences, a builder of relationships. Her eyes met his with newfound clarity. "What if we host a tasting event together? I can present my new blends, and you can help share our memories with others. This way, the past informs our future." There was a beat of silence, the cafe's background chatter fading into nothingness. Mr. Thompson's frown deepened as he mulled over her suggestion. "You think they'll come? The regulars? If you're with me, I know they will. They trust you." The confidence in her voice surprised even her, a boldness emerging from within that had previously felt buried in the aftermath of Lost. He turned slightly, surveying the room filled with patrons, each drink a vessel of recollections waiting to be uncorked. Linda could feel the air shift, The potential for reconciliation fresh and alive. It was his turn to deliberate. I guess. I can see how it may work, he finally said, a hesitant smile dancing at the corners of his mouth. Linda smiled back, the tension draining slowly from her shoulders. Great. Let us set a date and transform this skepticism into something beautiful together. As they spoke, Linda felt a part of herself reform, the confidence seeping into her bones. Wasn't that why she fought for this cafe? To weave new connections from the threads of the old? But as the conversation continued, another thought slinked into her mind, one that tugged at her sense of responsibility. Was she ready to face more staunch critics, the ones who might see this change as her farewell to the past? The pressure mounted again. The stakes were higher now, with possibilities of opposition just within reach. Would this tasting event tip the scale, igniting the warmth of acceptance, or would it unleash a storm of resistance she wasn't prepared for? She stood on the precipice of redefinition, her heart thundering with both the thrill of creation and the fear of backlash, knowing this was just the beginning of her transformation. Before she could dwell too long on the ramifications, another patron approached, oozing skepticism. She braced herself, ready to continue her battle for authenticity and connection. The time had come to face the real challenge, one that could either solidify her dreams or unravel the ties she sought to renew. What would be their reaction when they tasted her new vision for the cafe? Linda turned her attention to the newcomer, a regular she recognized but had never spoken to much. He leaned casually against the counter, a slight frown marring his otherwise relaxed demeanor. The way his brow furrowed put her on high alert. "Do we really need to change everything around here?" he asked, his tone a mix of annoyance and curiosity. "I mean, when I come here, I want my usual. I don't see why we need any new blends." His words landed like a weight on her chest, igniting the very fears she tried to suppress. It wasn't merely skepticism she was facing now. It was a palpable challenge to her vision. "I understand where you're coming from," she replied, forcing her voice to steadiness. "But part of what makes our cafe special is our ability to adapt while celebrating our roots." He crossed his arms, the posture of defense conjuring doubts in her mind. Was she truly ready to defend her decisions against those who held her past in such high regard? Would she unravel under pressure, or rise to the occasion? She took another breath, a tactic she started using to impede doubt's encroachment. "I appreciate your loyalty," she continued, her gaze unwavering. "Those familiar tastes are still here. But wouldn't it be exciting to explore new flavors together? Imagine how invigorating it could be to blend the old with the new, to create something fresh while honoring our history." For a moment, he remained silent, his eyes narrow as he considered her words. It was an awkward standoff. The cafe, once filled with the light chatter of patrons, now seemed quieter, as if the very walls were leaning in, listening. Slowly, his shoulders relaxed, but skepticism lingered, coiling around their conversation. "I just hope this doesn't ruin what we already have," he replied, softer now, eyes darting to the brewing machine, a relic of the cafe's long-standing tradition. Linda's heart raced. She wanted to project openness, an indication that she still valued the connections they had forged. But her thoughts darkened. What if these new blends erased the history that mattered to them both? But what if it could enhance it instead? She proposed, channeling every ounce of conviction and authenticity she could muster. "This tasting event isn't just about trying something different. It's a way to celebrate our journey together. The memories we've created can only be deepened with new experiences." She noticed the slightest flicker of engagement in his eyes. Was it enough? Did he sense her sincerity, the desire to build rather than destroy? Just as she thought she may have turned the tide, a sudden wave of hesitation crashed upon her again. Was she truly equipped to spark this change, or would she merely draw the ire of those she sought to uplift? Her mind raced, calculating the potential responses of others who had historically turned a blind eye to change. Would they echo the doubts of this newcomer? Unraveling confidence bubbled beneath her surface, a fragility she anticipated from herself. "Okay, I'll give it a try," the man finally said, albeit hesitantly. "I'll come to this tasting. But if it doesn't go well," she nodded vigorously, her heart pounding with both anxiety and possibility. "I promise to take your feedback seriously. We're in this together." With that first small victory, Linda straightened her back, recognizing the grave importance of each interaction moving forward. These conversations were not only about coffee, they were reflections of her journey, each one a step towards fulfillment. It was her responsibility to nurture both the past and the new, but as she gathered her thoughts, preparing to face more patrons, the stark reality hit her. This would only be the first of many confrontations. She braced herself, knowing that each reaction would be a reflection of her own doubts as much as their fears. Would she rise to the challenge of transformation, or would she falter beneath the weight of expectation? Determination fortified her as she picked up a steaming cup, ready to present her new vision, all while clinging to the hope that it would connect rather than divide. But her thoughts were interrupted by the unexpected arrival of someone she never expected to see again. Her old mentor, standing just outside the cafe door, a silent echo of her past, waiting. What was he doing here after all this time? Linda's heart skipped a beat as she tried to process the figure framed in the doorway. Tom, her mentor, the one who had guided her through the initial stages of her journey, stood with a familiar calm that both grounded and unsettled her. She recalled his passionate lectures about flavor profiles as if they were etched into the very wood of the counter she now leaned against. "Hey, Linda, I came to see how things are going," he said, his voice slicing through the tension that lingered in the air. "I heard you're making some changes." I couldn't resist checking it out. The knot in her stomach tightened. Was he here to support her, or to critique her efforts to innovate? She found it both invigorating and terrifying that he had chosen this moment at a time when her confidence was already wavering. "Oh, it's going well," she managed to reply, her tone faltering slightly. "Just trying to mix tradition with a bit of new flair." Tom nodded slowly, but his eyes scrutinized her, almost as if he was attempting to peer into the layers of doubt that shrouded her aspirations. The last time they had spoken, she had been overwhelmed with enthusiasm over her vision. Now, it felt as if every choice was an echo of her insecurities. "Change is a tricky thing in a place like this," he commented, leaning casually against the counter. "You know that as well as anyone. People can be resistant, especially loyal customers." A thread of frustration wove through her. "I understand," she replied, pulling from the core of her determination. "But it's necessary. We can't remain stagnant. Embracing evolution doesn't erase our past, it enhances it." "Sounds good in theory," he replied, a hint of skepticism creeping into his voice. "But how do you plan to balance old favorites with new offerings without alienating those who swear by the classic?" His question hung between them, a challenge swathed in concern. Linda felt a flicker of her earlier resolve rise, a response she hadn't expected. She thought of her conversation with the regular, about the excitement that came with blending the old with the new. What if we host a tasting? Invite customers to try new blends alongside their favorites. Let them see that change can be good, that we can celebrate our history while moving forward. Tom raised an eyebrow, a smile creeping across his face. "That's bold, Linda. But what if it doesn't go well? What if they reject your efforts?" It could be devastating. The weight of his words pressed down on her. "It won't kill me," she countered, a burgeoning fire in her gut. "But if I don't try, I'll always wonder what could have been. I've spent too long living in fear of failure." He regarded her with a newfound respect, and the corners of his mouth quirked up. "I'd forgotten just how fiercely you hold on to your beliefs." Linda's pulse quickened at his acknowledgement. "I've learned a lot since we last spoke. I'm not afraid of their feedback anymore. If they have concerns, I'll take it seriously and adapt. I owe it to them." "Good," he said. "That's the kind of mindset that will take you far." As she felt a rush of validation, minutes turned into seconds in her newfound clarity. This was not just about coffee anymore. It was about the embodiment of her growth, learning how to embrace vulnerability while forging ahead. She thought of every face she would encounter and realized she had the ability to propel herself through uncomfortable conversations rather than retreat. "I'll make it happen," she declared with confidence, feeling the shift inside that she had yearned for since the first wave of doubt had washed over her. Tom nodded approvingly, but before she could bask in the victory of her resolve, he added, "Just remember, growth doesn't happen without some pain. Are you ready for that?" In that moment, Linda's eyes searched his. Yes, there would be pain, and yes, there could be backlash. But there would also be creation, discovery, and connection. She would navigate this transformation deftly, carving her path with both courage and authenticity. As she prepared to dive back into her cafe duties, she couldn't shake the lingering questions that danced in her mind. The sun crested the horizon, casting a warm glow through the cafe windows as Linda prepped for the day ahead. The familiar sounds of grinding beans and steaming milk filled the air, but today they felt different, charged with an electric anticipation. She moved with purpose, each action a rehearsal for the tasting she planned, a realization that every sip held the power to redefine her space. Despite the comfort of her morning routine, her heart raced at the thought of her regulars' reactions, each one a potential harbinger of praise or critique. The thought of someone scoffing at her new creations gnawed at her resolve. Yet, a flicker of confidence ignited within her. This was more than coffee. It was a showcase of her evolution. Her first customer of the day, Mr. Jenkins, ambled in, a staple of the cafe's morning rhythm. He settled into his usual chair by the window, casting a cautious glance at the adjusted menu perched on the counter. Linda's stomach churned. Here was one of her biggest hurdles. His loyalty to the classics was unwavering. Could she convince him to step outside his comfort zone? "Good morning, Mr. Jenkins," she called, forcing a casual cheerfulness into her voice. "I have something new for you to try today." He looked at her with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "New? You know I'm a creature of habit, Linda." The corner of his mouth twitched, betraying a hint of humor amidst his doubt. "I know," she replied, stepping closer and lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "But what if I told you that I've created a blend that honors your favorite while introducing a twist?" His brow furrowed, and Linda could almost see the wheels turning in his mind. Would he gamble on her creativity? She felt a swell of anxious determination as she prepared to execute her strategy. She presented him with a small tasting cup, steam wafting upward, carrying with it the rich scent of dark roast mingled with hints of caramel and spice. "Just a sip," she urged, her voice steady. Her eyes locked onto his. He took the cup hesitantly, his cautious nature evident in the way he inspected it. Linda's heart raced, 1,000 thoughts colliding in her mind. What if he found it lacking? Would he voice his discontent? Would that moment shatter her budding confidence? He finally took a sip, and for a heart-stopping moment, silence reigned. He mused, his expression inscrutable. "Is it too bold?" Linda ventured, fidgeting with the edge of her apron. "It's different," he admitted slowly, setting the cup down as if he were carefully considering a precious artifact. "But it's not bad. I can taste the balance you've created. It's surprisingly good." Relief washed over her. But the battle was far from over. If he made a positive remark, would it reflect on her ability to engage others as well? What would happen when the next critic, a more discerning palate, arrived? As the morning progressed, Linda excelled at welcoming other patrons, each interaction fortifying her resolve. Those who embraced her new offerings reflected her boldness back at her, invigorating her spirit. Yet, the scrutiny of skeptics lingered like a storm cloud on the horizon. They didn't have to follow her lead, and many likely wouldn't. The seasoned critics among her regulars were yet to arrive. While encouragement bubbled up from those willing to experiment, she remained acutely aware of the impending challenge ahead, one that whispered of anxiety and self-doubt. Then, as if summoned by her thoughts, Carla, a notoriously discerning customer, swept into the cafe, her sharp gaze flicking over the new menu. Linda's stomach dropped. The moment had come. Would Carla's renowned critique resonate as thunder in her newly established sanctuary? "Linda, I see you've made some changes," Carla said, her tone ambiguous. "Yes. I've introduced a few new blends," Linda replied, her voice tighter than she intended. "I'd love your thoughts on one of them." As she prepared the cup, her mind raced with the ramifications of bringing her creations under scrutiny, both the thrill of anticipation and a gnawing fear of rejection looking her square in the eye. "Just remember, it's a leap of faith, and not all audiences are ready to embrace change." Tom's voice echoed in her head, reflecting back her own apprehension. Was she equipped for the critique? Could she turn feedback into fortitude, or would the pressure crumble her resolve? With everything transforming around her, the tables had turned. Each sip, each opinion held the weight of her evolution. The stakes were rising sharply, each encounter setting her on a brighter path or pulling her into the depths of doubt and ridicule. How would she react when an unyielding critic faced her, twisting the very foundation upon which she was building her dreams? The moment loomed ahead, suffused with potential and peril in equal measure. As the sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the cafe with a warm embrace, Linda stood at the counter, her heart racing with both excitement and dread. Today was no ordinary day. It was the culmination of weeks of introspection, preparation, and courage. Her open house had arrived, and with it, the opportunity to redefine not just her offerings, but her own self-perception as a cafe owner and a woman navigating the complexities of her 60s. Facing the crowd gathered in her shop, an eclectic mix of loyal patrons and new faces, Linda took a deep breath and exuded a newfound calmness. The doubts that had plagued her through this journey felt lighter today. She had spent nights pondering the delicate balance between honoring her past and embracing her future. And today, she was ready to manifest that vision. "Welcome, everyone." She projected her voice with confidence, a stark contrast to the apprehension that had lingered as she prepared. "I'm thrilled to unveil a selection of new blends, crafted to celebrate both our beloved traditions and introduce fresh vitality. Each sip is a bridge connecting us to shared memories while exploring new possibilities." The room was a cocktail of anticipation and curiosity. As she began to pour her new health-infused blends into small cups for sampling, Linda felt the energy shift. Patrons leaned in closer, drawn to the enticing aromas wafting through the air. She moved among them, a whirlwind of enthusiasm, confident with each presentation of her handcrafted creations. Mr. Jenkins was the first to approach, a hesitant expression still adorning his face. "I hope this doesn't mean I won't be able to get my regular anymore," he said, half jokingly, but with a hint of genuine concern. "Not at all." Linda smiled, the warmth radiating from her confidence. "I will always honor our classics. But let us add some new layers to our experience. Here, try this one, it's my special espresso infusion." She passed him a tasting cup, her heart pounding in melodic rhythm as he took a sip. His face began to light up, and she watched with bated breath like an artist awaiting critique. "This is actually fantastic. The spices elevate it without losing the core flavor. I can see myself enjoying this." Linda exhaled deeply, relief washing over her. The first hurdle had been cleared. Encouraged by his response, she continued to circulate through the crowd. Carla, known for her discerning tastes, entered moments later, and Linda steeled herself. The moment would be pivotal. Would Carla see the value in her evolution or shred her confidence anew? As Carla approached, her expression inscrutable, Linda prepared for the inevitable critique. "Looks like you're changing things up," Carla stated flatly, her brow furrowed as she examined the array of new blends. "Some of us prefer less experimentation. The future calls for evolution, Carla," Linda replied, summoning every ounce of resolve. "But I also celebrate our history. Let us taste it together." She offered a tasting cup filled with a blend she had perfected, one that married tradition with novelty. With a slight reluctance, Carla took a sip, her critical gaze softened by curiosity. Linda's heart raced, each beat a drumroll to her nerves. "Well?" she prompted. "I will admit it's interesting. The notes have depth, but does it veer too far from the original?" Carla's voice was frank, not harsh, but it still sliced through Linda's hopeful anticipation. "Change can be a dance, not a clash," Linda said, her own voice steady, carrying conviction. "I want this to feel like home while exploring new horizons. Provide me feedback, together we can make it right." Laughter erupted from someone nearby, warming the atmosphere. "See, she's asking for our criticism, Carla." It was Jamie, the artist. "That shows growth. Let us support her." Encouraged by that support, Linda felt a swell of confidence. Suddenly, it wasn't just her cafe, but her heart on display. No longer the fearful owner cloaked by nostalgia, she stood recognized as a leader in her space. Throughout the day, she received feedback, both positive and constructive. Each response emboldened her. Conversations transitioned from apprehensive whispers into discussions around flavor profiles, shared memories, and excitement for future experiments. Linda wove the threads of nostalgia through her innovations, showcasing not just her coffee, but her willingness to adapt. As the sun dipped low, the warm light shifted, signaling the end of the open house. Linda stood behind the counter, gazing out at her patrons, their smiles now reflected back in her newfound confidence. She realized that she hadn't merely introduced new coffee blends. She had transformed her approach to the cafe and herself. She noted a palpable shift in the atmosphere. This community wasn't just clinging to their past. They were ready to evolve with her. The apprehension that once clouded her existence evaporated, giving way to a flourishing vibrancy filled with hope and possibilities. The day culminated with a collective toast, hands raised, mugs clinking in unity. In that moment, Linda wasn't just celebrated as a proprietor of coffee. She stood validated as a woman who had navigated change and emerged not just successfully, but triumphantly. Linda walked away from the counter, meeting her own reflection in the cafe's window. This was who she was meant to become, a blend of tradition and innovation, courage and connection. Today marked a turning point, a resolute capture of her story in every sip shared. Her heart soared. She had accomplished a significant transformation, intertwining vital legacy with dynamic future, affirming her place in her community. Subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Linda's inspiring journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting our channel through these actions.